Hello, and thank you for joining us today for this pre-launch press conference. I am Bettina Klan with Axiom Space. Axiom Space, NASA, and SpaceX mission managers have completed the launch readiness review, and the AX2 crew is now cleared and ready to launch to the ISS tomorrow, May 21st at 5:37 p.m. The four-person crew includes Commander Peggy Whitson, pilot John Schaffner, and mission specialist Ali Akarni and mission specialist Rayana Barnawi. We're really looking forward to this hardworking crew to make history on many fronts, including the first private mission with both private individuals and astronauts representing foreign governments, the first private mission commanded by a woman, the first Saudi woman astronaut, as well as the first Saudi astronaut to go to the International Space Station. The AX2 mission will conduct over 20 different experiments across a breadth of science and technology specialties in areas in the form of future human spaceflight and improved life on Earth. AX2 is the second of several proposed Axiom Space missions to the ISS. We're excited to talk about it, and we're going to turn it over to our team. Today joining us is Derek Hassman, Chief of Mission Integration and Operations at Axiom Space, Joel Montalbano, Manager of the International Space Station Programs at NASA, Benji Reed, Senior Director of Human Spaceflight Programs at SpaceX, Michelle Ashimimori, Microgravity Research Lead, Saudi Space Agency, Brian Sizek, 55th Weather Aero Squadron of the U.S. Space Force. So in a moment, we'll have them say opening remarks, and then we will open the line to questions from members of the media. If you have a question, please raise your hand using the chat function, using the function here on the panel. You could also submit your questions. Please remember to state your name, affiliation, and whom your question is directed to. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to our first speaker, Derek.
Thank you, Bettina, and good evening to everybody on the call. I just wanted to share my sincere appreciation for everybody's participation and interest today. It's obviously a very, very exciting day. We worked a long time in collaboration with our partners at SpaceX and NASA to get to this point. The crew's been working very hard to get trained, and they're certainly ready to go. And our Axiom flight control teams back in Houston are ready to support as well. The crew has spent the last 2 weeks in quarantine, similar to same type of quarantine that the NASA crews go through. And they made very good use of that time. They've been reviewing training materials. They're doing refresher training and just getting their minds focused on what's ahead of them. The Axiom team has had daily telecoms with the crew in which just we tag up on how the day went, any questions they had, and then what the next few days look like, and also just general updates on the mission plan. In addition, our Axiom CEO and President, Michael Suffredini, was able to visit the crew yesterday, and he reports they're in great spirits. So we are very excited to be less than 24 hours away, and looking forward to a exciting and successful mission. Bettina, I'll hand it back to you.
Thank you so much, Derek. Next, we'll go to Joel Montalbano. Thank you so much. Next, Benji Reed.
Hi there. Thanks for having me here today. Wanted just to, first of all, thank everybody for having us. And it's always an honor to be here and an honor to be able to provide transportation for all of our customers, and especially these exciting commercial missions to the space station. I'll start by saying we finished our launch readiness review just a little bit ago this afternoon, and that went very well. As usual, these are thorough reviews. They represent the culmination of many reviews and processes that we've completed in getting ready for the launch. We've done everything we can to ensure that the hardware, both the Falcon and Dragon hardware, as well as the launch site and everything are ready to go, and the teams are ready. The crew is trained. The ground teams and hardware are, wrapping up their final tasks to get ready for launch. And we've completed our full day rehearsal that we did yesterday to be ready to go, and things are looking great. So we're looking really good. The static fire data that we did yesterday came out well, and really we're not tracking any significant issues. I will take a moment right now, though, to describe one item of interest. As part of our process at SpaceX, we do this sort of due diligence where we just go back and just double check everything, right? We want to turn over all the rocks and look under everything and double check and make sure everything was done correctly. In this case, when we did it, we discovered that there were 9 fasteners. Now there are many fasteners, many bolts, right? That not only hold the Dragon together, but that hold the various panels on the exterior of Dragon together. We discovered that one panel that has 9 fasteners on it, that the fill of the thermal protection system, the thermal protection material that fills into those fasteners, that on 9 of them, it was just a little bit too little of the thermal protection that goes over the fasteners. We're actually fairly confident that would be okay, that we could fly the Dragon that way and then come back and re-enter with the amount of fill that we have there. Those analyses are ongoing. However, in an abundance of caution, we've decided to go ahead and get those filled exactly to the amount that they need to be filled with this thermal protection material on those 9 fasteners. So if some people may have noticed that there's a large crane out on the launch site, and we actually have somebody who's going to be lifted up and applying the material to fill in those fastener gaps, those little holes there. And we'll get the vehicle back to exactly the state that it's supposed to be in and ready for launch. We expect that whole process and procedure to complete this evening. It'll have no impact, we expect, to the launch. And we've continued with all the other flow. We've continued with cargo load and everything else that we need to do on Dragon and Falcon and the rest of the system. So just wanted some awareness there on that one. Other than that, everything looks great. We've got a clear path forward to launch, and then looking forward to that tomorrow evening here on the East Coast, about 5:37 p.m. As usual, we'll always say that safety is a top priority. We take that very seriously. It's a deep honor to be able to fly people to space, bring them home safely to their families, and we deeply thank the crew and their families for trusting us to be able to provide that transportation. We thank Axiom Space and NASA and the Saudi Space Commission for their trust and partnership and their close collaboration for this AX-2 launch as we get ready to continue in the direction of making life multiplanetary. So thank you all for your time.
Thank you, Benji. And we heard that we had a little technical challenge, so we're going to go back to Joel for his remarks. So Joel?
Hey, thank you, Bettina, and thank you everyone for joining us again today. As you heard this afternoon, we finished up the launch readiness review, and at the end of that review, NASA pulled go along with SpaceX and Axiom. On orbit, the vehicle is doing well, and it's ready to support this mission. As you heard, launch time, 5:37 p.m. Eastern on Sunday night. That sets us up nicely for docking about 15 hours later, looking at Monday morning, 9:30 a.m. Eastern. From a NASA standpoint, we're looking forward to this Axiom 2 mission, both on the ground and with the on-orbit crew. We're looking to build upon the lessons learned from Axiom 1 and to build on our relationship with Axiom Space and private astronaut missions. This crew will join the on-orbit crew of Steve, Woody, Sultan, Andre, Frank, Dimitri, and Sergey, and they will continue the utilization and research activities that we've been doing throughout the expedition. With that, thank you again for your time, and let me hand it back over to Bettina.
Thank you so much, Joel. from here, we're going to go to Michelle. Michelle?
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm really honored and excited to be here. We're really close to launch. The entire crew is excited. They've done all the training required to get to hopefully tomorrow for a successful launch. And hopefully the weather cooperates with us. Everybody's excited, and because this has been a long journey, and we're making history here, as you've heard, that we will be launching the first female and Arab to space, and then the first Saudi to ISS. So this is a very historic moment for us, as their mission will inspire many, many generations to participate in STEM fields and hopefully become the astronauts of the future. What we wanted to share is that, this is an exciting moment for us. It's historic. Not only that, but also because our crew is really looking forward to contributing to the science. We have 11 experiments that they are going to do, plus they're going to inspire our youth through our 3 experimental outreach, which is intended to reach to all the students in Saudi so that they can participate and have an analog to compare their experiments on the ground to what happens in space to fully understand the effects of microgravity. We also would like to thank the entire team, our international partners at Axiom and NASA for their hard work to making this come to fruition. And we really look forward to a successful launch tomorrow and hopefully safe return for our crew. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Michelle. And next we'll go to Brian. Brian, over to you.
All right, thank you very much. Hello, everybody. My name is Brian Cizik. I am a launch weather officer on the weather team for this mission. I'm filling in for my colleague, Mike McAleenan, who's the lead launch weather officer. He's been sending out the forecast, but just for a quick overview of the weather, we are entering our summer wet season here in East Central Florida. That typically starts in late May, goes through September, where we get those daily showers and thunderstorms. We get about 2/3 of our rainfall in 1/3 of the year here in East Central Florida. Having that said, tomorrow is actually looking pretty decent. I think we're going to see a similar day that we saw here today in East Central Florida. We'll probably see some thunderstorms and showers fire up along the sea breeze in the early afternoon. So we get some surface heating that causes the sea breeze to form. That could be a trigger for showers and thunderstorms. By later in the afternoon, though, and early evening, I think most of those thunderstorms are going to be to our west, further inland. And really the only thing we're going to have to watch for is the anvil coming off the top of those thunderstorms. So those are those high kind of wispy clouds that come off the top of the thunderstorms after they hit the top of the troposphere, and they can kind of spread out back towards the coast. We're going to have westerly winds in the upper levels, and the problem with those is those can carry a charge in them from the thunderstorm. So that's why you have to watch out for them. We have several weather rules in place to make sure that those aren't dangerous. But overall, weather looking pretty good for tomorrow, just a 40% probability of violation. Again, the main concern being the anvil coming back eastward from those thunderstorms that will be to our west. But then the pattern becomes a lot messier as we head into the beginning of the work week. We kind of have a boundary linking in the area, some mid-level disturbances, lots of moisture in place. So unfortunately, the probability of violation bumps up to 80% as we head to that first backup day on Monday early evening. So just to recap, just a 40% POV for tomorrow's attempt and an 80% probability of violation if we are to utilize the backup day on Monday. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. So all of us are really hoping that tomorrow is awesome. So with that, we're going to open it up to questions from reporters. Just a reminder, if you have a question, you can either use the raise your hand feature that you see on your screen, and we will call on you and open your line. You can also submit your questions via the chat function. So either one will work. We're going to move it along. Please remember to write your name, to state your name, affiliation, and to whom you'd like to direct the question. And to help us here in the room, if on the Zoom it comes out as a phone number, if you could change that to your name so we know who we're calling, that would be really helpful. With that, we will take our first question for this press conference. We have a question from Marvin Marshall from Space Report News for Derek. Could you share some of the most exciting moments during the preparation for this mission and how these successes set a precedent for future Axiom missions?
Sure. Thanks for the question. So there are basically two parallel paths relative to the training that the X2 has gone through. There's the training on the International Space Station systems and daily life on board the ISS, and then there's training on the Dragon spacecraft that's conducted by SpaceX at their facilities, primarily in Los Angeles. So it's a gradual buildup of knowledge leading to a certification that verifies that the crew is qualified and ready to go fly. On both sides, on the Dragon side and the International Space Station side, the crew gets trained on the typical day-to-day activities. Like, for example, for ISS, they learn how to use the galley and the toilet facilities, how to interact with the payload systems they're going to be operating, but they also practice emergency scenarios, which we never expect to happen, but are important that the crew understand how to deal with. So it's a gradual buildup of expertise and knowledge, leading to that final certification that they both were given about a month ago. And each of these missions, it was mentioned earlier that we built on lessons learned from AX1. We did learn a lot about how to train these private astronaut mission crews, or how to train them better, what to focus on, what specific refreshers are important, and how to better timeline the mission. So each of these missions we expect to be successful, but you also expect to kind of push the envelope on what we did before. And then we take those things that we learn from each of these successive missions, apply it to the next mission, eventually leading up to the launch and activation of the Axiom station module in the last quarter of 2025.
Thank you so much. The next question will be from Jeff Faust. Jeff, I am opening your line. Go ahead.
Hey, good afternoon. Two quick questions. One for Benji. Apologies if I missed it, but you could clarify where on the vehicle the panel is that you're adjusting the fasteners and the thermal protection on that. And then for Derek or Joel, is the plan still to have only the launch opportunities on Sunday and Monday, and then stand down if you don't launch after Monday? Thanks.
Great, sure. It's one of the quads. I want to say it's quad 3, but don't quote me on that. It's towards the upper part of the vehicle, part of the capsule, but I actually don't have off the top of my head the exact quad that it's in.
Okay. And then on the launch opportunities, this is Joel. Sunday and Monday is what we're targeting for. And then the plan is to stand down and focus on the SpaceX 28 cargo mission.
Great. Thank you so much. Next question comes from Marcia Dunn. She asks, I think we just, forgive me, we're reading this on Zoom. So she asked, if weather or other issues keep you on the ground through Monday, could you try again later in the week? Is there any wiggle room, or would that be it? And you've had to get in line behind the next SpaceX supply run, also the Starliner test in July. This is Marcia Dunn at the AP. Thank you, Marcia.
Hey, Marcia, Joel again. I think we answered that with Jeff's question, but Sunday and Monday will be our launch opportunities, and then we're going to turn and focus the team on the SpaceX 28 cargo mission. As you noted in your question, we are also protecting the Boeing mission, the CFT mission in July 21st. And so what we do, if we don't get off on Sunday and Monday, we'll get together with NASA and Axiom and SpaceX and kind of look at the whole manifest and see where the next opportunity is for a launch opportunity for the Axiom 2 mission.
Great, thank you so much. Our next question will come from Tarek. Tarek, your line is open.
Hello, yes, thank you very much. Tarek Malik from space.com, and I think my question is for Joel. Joel, you mentioned about some of the lessons that you had learned alongside Axiom in the first mission that you've been able to apply to this one. And I'm just curious from the station side, what were some of the really key takeaways that NASA kind of learned from that experience that we're going to see, I guess, in action for AX2 and beyond in the missions to come?
Okay, hey, good question, Tarek. I'll highlight just a couple items. One, when we had talked to the Axiom 1 crew when they returned and went over their training and asked them what was helpful, what would they have preferred to get more training on. And so, as Derek mentioned, what we've done is optimize the training that's specific for the Axiom 2 crew. For example, we want them to understand the daily operations products that they're going to use on the laptops, for example, and how to use those products. What we got from the first crew is they would have liked more time and learning those tools such that they can be more efficient on orbit. The other thing we did is we looked at the scheduling and how we schedule the Axiom crew. The Axiom 1 mission, we had the crew fully scheduled, and then we had the NASA crew on orbit fully scheduled. And when you look at that, it probably makes more sense, at least in the beginning, to kind of set up the team such that the on-orbit crew could help the Axiom crew get up and running and kind of get their space legs under them, and they can press forward. So some scheduling, some minor things on that. I'll tell you, there wasn't a whole lot of big lessons learned from Axiom 1, but every time we fly, we learn stuff. We figure out what to do better, and that's what we did, and we're looking forward to Axiom 2.
Thank you, Joel. Again, if you want to ask a question, you can raise your hand. You can submit it in the chat. And those that are on the line, you can press *9 to raise your hand and submit a question that way. We have a question from James Siegel. James, your line is open. James?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for taking my question. Regarding when Axiom actually puts up its own version of the ISS, its own private space station, to what extent will some of the organizations that have been working with NASA right now putting specific investigations aboard, will that work the same way as it does now, or will the negotiation between, say, I don't know, a company like Budweiser, for example, will they be communicating directly with the Axiom folks, or how's that going to work? Has anybody figured that out yet? Thank you.
I will say that one of the advantages that I see from the Axiom basically ops concept, which is, as you mentioned, connecting to the ISS first and then building up our station and then ultimately disconnecting and becoming a standalone space station down the road, is that not only do we get the experience working with NASA on orbit and the benefit of all their experience and the margin of resources that the ISS provides, but it also gives us access to all the customers that are using the ISS today. So my expectation is that as we operate jointly with the ISS, we'll build up the relationships with the existing ISS customers, the international partners, the other government customers, private organizations, and so forth, and we'll be able to provide a seamless transition from the ISS to the Axiom station. Commercial opportunities or commercial elements are certainly something that Axiom's interested in the future. And while the Axiom station is connected to the ISS and we're an integrated space station, we'll certainly collaborate with NASA on how best to execute any commercial activities that become available in the future.
Thank you so much for that question. We have a few more questions here. I have a question from Irene Klotz that she submitted. Said, how does AX2 fit into the overall plan for Saudi Arabia's human space program? Is the country also working with the Chinese space station program? Does it plan to be part of the Artemis program? Michelle, I would say that question's for you.
Thank you so much for the questions. So this mission is our inaugural mission. The human spaceflight program for Saudi is part of our national space strategy. It's a strategic program that is meant to be sustainable. Saudi has signed the Artemis Accord, so we are a member of the Artemis program. So we have aspirations to do missions to the moon and be part of the entire group that contributes to the Artemis program. That's essentially that's one of the aspects of it, and the human spaceflight program will play a role in that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a few more questions we're going through here. I see Jeff's hand up again. So Jeff, we'll go back to you. Your line is open. I have a technical difficulty, so I'm going to go back and read one of the questions that have been submitted here. From Marsha Dunn, I'm wondering how many Saudis are here at Cape Canaveral for tomorrow's launch from people of Saudi Arabia, and what is the most exciting for you as 2 astronauts from Saudi Arabia are set to launch? Michelle, back to you.
Thank you so much for that question. I am in fact here currently in Orlando, but we'll be at Cape Canaveral tomorrow, so we're very excited about it. I'm very familiar with Florida because I grew up here, so every time I see a launch, it's very exciting for me, certainly because this is a historic moment for launching the first Saudi female and then first male to ISS. It's a historic moment that has a very large impact, not only on Saudi, but on the region as a whole, because it will inspire a lot of people and a lot of young people to participate in STEM. They will realize that these are potential jobs that they can have in the future, and potentially they can dream to become these future astronauts. And then our goals for space are, they're pretty big, and we plan to do a lot of things in space, so it will continue to be inspiring. So we are really excited about it. So for sure, seeing a rocket launch is always thrilling, and for the fact that it being a historic launch for us will be, the icing on the cake. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have a question from Jay Keegan from TLP Network for Benji. Benji, in terms of the booster landing, can you confirm whether the weight and performance upgrades have been made to Falcon 9 for AX2, or if this will be for Crew 6 onwards? Benji?
Hi there. Yeah, no, that's a great question. We evaluate each mission as it comes along, and to understand the performance needed for that specific mission, specific trajectories and whatnot. The great news is that Falcon 9 continues to add performance and performance margin, and that allows us to do like what we're doing for this mission, where we're going to be able to bring the Falcon back to the launch site the first time for one of our human spaceflight missions. And we do that again with sufficient margin, with a great amount of margin that allows us to very safely continue to carry the crew through added performance and performance margin. So, we'll just have to evaluate. We'll see each mission as it comes along and see if we do this ongoing or which missions we do it for.
Thank you, Benji. We have a question from Matthew Henson. What is your plan for the astronauts before meeting with the Crew 6 astronauts in the International Space Station?
Yeah, so there's about 15 hours from launch to docking, so there's not a lot of time. There's some amount of work that the X2 crew will do to get the spacecraft configured for that brief journey between launch and ISS docking. Of course, they get out of their pressure suits. They'll probably have a quick meal or snack. They'll look at their procedures for docking, and then ultimately, once they get docked, they'll make another transition into their flight suits and open the hatches and get ready for the greeting ceremony.
Thank you so much. We have another question from Tarek. Sorry, I just saw your hand, but you submitted the question, so this one's for Mashal. How is the general Saudi public at home following the mission? Are the crew rock stars already? Will they be reaching out to students during their flights? And how will the science collected by the astronauts be shared once they come back to Earth? Mashal?
Absolutely. Saudi Arabia is super excited. We have a bunch of events that are happening in Saudi to promote the launch, prior to the launch, during the launch, and even after. We have a few different space type pop-up museums across Saudi that students and young children, adults, and everybody who wants to get engaged and participate and share the emotions together can attend. And we are, in fact, having 3 outreach essentially experiments aboard the ISS that will happen in real time with students on the ground across Saudi. So the objective of that is to kind of engage the youth and the students to participate and to understand the effects of microgravity on the results of an experiment. We have 3 specific experiments. One is on heat transfer to kind of understand what happens, how do you deal with waste heat or reject heat in space? So what we did is we essentially have a heating element that's encased in a vacuum that mimics the outside environment of space. And then the students on Earth will have access to, obviously it's not going to be in a vacuum, and therefore their experiment will see convection, conduction, and radiation. And so the idea there is that they will compare the results of heat dissipation being mimicking the external environment of space, and essentially how that compares to what's on the ground. We also have an experiment for a younger crowd of kids. So that targets students from 9 to 12 years old, where we do the liquid fireworks experiment aboard the ISS, and the students will compare their results with the astronauts by doing it on the ground and essentially look at the different shapes and how long it takes for the shape to settle and compare the results that way. We also have the third experiment, which is essentially trying to understand aerodynamics, the effect of microgravity on aerodynamics, and whether you will see differences in how a kite, 3 different kites will fly aboard the ISS versus what's on the ground. So absolutely, people are super excited. We are engaging the public. A lot of students are going to be seeing these live events and participating in them and showcasing the results and having the critical thinking to compare the results with what's going on in space. Thank you.
And Michelle, just to add to that, we have a few questions here. They're just curious of how people back in Saudi Arabia will watch the launch. Can you share any information on how people back home will be following the mission?
Yeah, absolutely. So at these events, there's a gigantic stage that has a huge screen that will showcase the launch live. And then we will also have it across all our social media and YouTube channels, and even the news will have access directly to those live feeds.
Thank you. And I will add to that I know from our team, we have our webcast they'll be showing. We also have an Arabic language webcast they'll be showing this mission back to not only for people in Saudi Arabia, for the region. So we're really excited to share human spaceflight with more people all around the world. Our next question comes from Ken Chang. Ken, I have opened up your line. Ken?
This is Will Robinson Smith with Spectrum 13. I think you unmuted me by mistake. Ken's supposed to go first.
Interesting. On my computer it says Ken, but go ahead, Will.
Oh, all right. Thanks for taking my question. This one's for Derek. Since NASA's requirement for the private astronaut missions includes having a retired NASA astronaut on the crew, will Axiom bounce back and forth between Michael Lopez Alegria and Peggy Whitson, or are there other retired astronauts that may step up to the commander position for AX3 or further down the road? Thanks.
So for X3 and the subsequent missions, we have not yet assigned commanders, but we will certainly continue to conform to NASA's requirement to have it be a formerly flown NASA astronaut. But those assignments have not been made for the future flights.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you everyone for dealing with our technical difficulties. We are trying as much as we can to make sure that we answer everyone's questions and get information out there. We do have a question from Marvin Marshall from Space Report News. In addition to the experiments that the crew will be doing, are there any additional experiments related to the future installation on the Axiom module? So Derek, this question is for you.
Yeah, for this particular mission, and in general for these precursor missions, certainly one of the things that we're trying to do is to identify technologies that will be of use to us for our future space station missions. One of the technologies that we're interested in is an electronic way to track inventory, which is inventory and cargo on the station, which is always challenging and is something that ISS has worked very hard to address over the years. And the other thing that we're trying to test out on these missions is a lot of the information technology, laptops, cell phones, and so forth, and how best to utilize those for the astronauts to make their days more efficient.
Thank you so much. We're going through, thank you everyone that has submitted a question. At this point, we're going to wrap it up, but just a few reminders. Remember, if you have any questions that have not been answered today, you can submit your questions to media@axiomspace.com. We also want to remind you that the launch, as we said before, is Sunday, May 21st at 5:37 p.m. We are excited about the many firsts that we're going to be seeing on this mission. As we've stated today, it's going to be the first private space mission with both private individuals and astronauts representing foreign governments. It'll be the first mission with first private mission with a female commander, and it'll be the first Saudi woman to go to the International Space Station. So we're very excited about all of these incredible firsts. The webcast will begin at 2:10 p.m. Right before walkout, and it will continue through orbital insertion. We have several media opportunities for those attending launch, and we have a press conference post-launch around 7 p.m. for all of those anywhere around the world to participate and get your questions answered. Thank you so much for joining us today, and go AX2.
Goodbye.